Hey, what's up, Unbroken Nation?
So how do you kind of balance that? And then also like what does balance like ultimately look like? How can people know as if they have, I hate to use the word right, but if they're doing this in a way that is actually not counterproductive to the rest of their life?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think, you have to look at, I think sometimes the course correction, the overcorrection is a necessary step for some people. They kind of have to go that way, but then you have to do sort of the inverse of like, is this still supporting me? Am I to the point where I'm not letting my kids crawl on the couch because I don't want them to spill? Like, is it causing you? Are you getting beholden to being that? Look, we're human. Being human is messy. Your house is going to get messy. You're going to be traveling and not unpack your suitcase for a couple days. Like it's going to happen and that's okay. And sometimes you got to let it. A really good litmus test I tell people is every room in your house, you should be able to tidy up in 20 minutes or less. So if you get a phone call that you're like, oh, my friends are coming over to watch the big game, you should be able to go through, tidy your house, every room in 20 minutes or less. If that gets out of whack, that's a really good sign that things are getting out of control. So I think balance is, the other side of that decluttering coin is that you don't become beholden to your space, that you're not spending an exorbitant amount of time or you find yourself saying no a lot. Don't sit on that couch. Don't use those glasses. Don't, you'll tell, you'll be able to tell. I think that's the big for me is if you all of a sudden feel as being neat and tidy.
Yeah. And then it becomes an identity shift, right? And that's where it gets dangerous. And I remember having these conversations with people and being like, I distinctly would say this, I'm the cleanest person you've ever met. And that became dangerous because now it's like, take your shoes off when you walk in and you have to put your cup on the sink and use the coat. And I'm like, dude, it doesn't matter. It's fine.
No.
Let
And that languaging, I'm the cleanest person. I am, whenever somebody, I am so organized, I am so organized. My sock drawer, I'm like, "Oof, you're building an identity around that
Yep.
and you're not giving yourself room to be human." It's funny. I have a staff of 10 right now. I just hired another person, which is amazing. We're so busy. And I rarely hire the person that's like, my sock drawer is perfectly organized. My sock drawer, my underwear is color coded. I always hire the person that's like, well, my mom, I had to care for my mom because she had a long-term illness and I cleaned the house. It's the people who come work for me are the people who understand the humanity of it, right? The humanity of the journey. But if they're so rigid in everything has to be perfect, it's not a good fit for my company.
Yeah, because in that place, and that was in my journey, I was seeking perfection. And in the same way, it's funny, it's you replace one thing with the other, one thing with the other. I don't know that that ever ends, and I'm probably replacing all that with something else right now, like, broccoli sprouts in my smoothies in the morning, like whatever that thing is. But it's really about awareness and paying attention and just saying, yeah, I am human. And if my friends come over, this is actually was just coaching one of my clients on this. I said, if your friends come over and they see that you did not do everything perfect for them, they're not going to know because that's in your head.
Exactly. They're never gonna know. And the thing is, like, that's a great example. You're missing out on something. If you're so worried about your house looking perfect for your friends to come over, that when your friends come over, you're not gonna be present with that because you're gonna be like,
Mhm.
oh, are they putting that glass on the coffee table and I'm gonna get a ring? Oh, do they like my dishes? You're not gonna connect with them because you're worried about this other thing. And I want to point this out. I also think a part of this whole journey, right? We're all just here, as Ram Dass says, we're all just walking each other home. This journey we're always learning. And so sometimes the big step for me, growing up the child of a hoarder and in the divorced home and all the all the chaos that ever existed, I know that when something in my professional life or something feels out of control, I will come home and organize my closet. I know it makes me feel better. It's like my little self-care, I can go in there, I'll get rid of some stuff, but the key is that I know when I'm doing it. Like I know to myself, like, oh, today was tough. this client was very tough. Stuff's going on with my dad. I know this is going to make me feel better. So I think that when we acknowledge, right, this will just make me feel better instead of being beholden to that behavior and doing it while we're not thinking about it. That's when we get the balance, right? That's when we manage the behavior instead of the behavior managing us.
Yeah. And I think that also I would tie in this concept that I said in a lot of this too shall pass, right? This moment, these feelings, these emotions, even the dopamine hit from cleaning the closet under stress, like enjoy it for 17 seconds because the next thing is coming. It's right around the corner. And I think that I hope people will hear this and not go and destroy themselves because things are a mess. Like life's a mess. You know, Dr. Caroline Leaf, one of my favorite people on planet Earth, wrote a book called Cleaning Up Your Mental Mess. That's the game. Time and time again, it's about, can you just continue to declutter that 20 minutes every single day, right? Because ultimately, I mean, I look at my office on the other side of it. I'm like, that thing's not supposed to be there right now, but I just got back from a trip and the bag's not packed, but I just got off the airplane. It's like, but
Right.
do it.
Right.
Don't let it overtake you. Find the time, find the space and do it. What do you think if you were to break this down into just simplified framework of steps? Are there 2, 3, 5 steps, anything that people can start executing against immediately to start seeing some change, even as they're listening to the end of this?
Yeah. So the first step, the very, very, very first step is why? Why do you want to get decluttered? Why do you want to get organized? Write it down, put it somewhere where you can see it. Because if you don't have a strong why, you're not going to stay motivated, right? Like, oh, I want my house to look good on Instagram. That is not a why. I want to clean out my back bedroom so my best friend can 3 years. That is a great why. And the why should also be something that you gain. I don't, again, not something to beat yourself up. So get clear about your why. Why are you doing it? What will you gain? My soapbox again, offsite storage units. It's a billion-dollar
It's a
business.
travesty.
Don't, oh, please. I posted something, I got dragged, but I was like, no, I have been in hundreds of them. No one is storing anything in those storage units that's worth more than they're paying. I'm sorry, you're not. There's no, and if it's in a storage unit across town, you don't need it because you can't go get it. So that's a big thing I do with clients all the time. And the first thing is, what would you do with that extra? How about an extra $400 in your pocket a month? How would that feel? Like saving money is a great motivator. So when everybody just start with the why, what's your why? Write it down, remind yourself. The second thing, and this is, I talk about this a lot too with I call it the admin of being an adult, right? Paying your bills, dealing with your insurance. Like you have to schedule that time in. If you're not naturally, if you aren't drawn to being organized or cleaning, schedule the time in. Put it in your calendar. Same thing. I love to work out when I'm there, but I don't like going there. I just know I love it. I feel great. It's amazing. I realize that this is not my strong suit. I'm not self-motivated about working out. I hired a trainer. I book the time. I have to pay if I don't go. I go. I go 3 times a week and I love it. So book your time, right? Like, oh, Saturday, I have an hour. Sunday, I have 2 hours. And don't book your time after you've worked a 12-hour day and think you're going to come home and do it because you're not. Do it when you can be successful. Set yourself up for success. So, book some time in, and maybe you need support. Maybe you need a friend. Like maybe you need to say to a friend, hey, I want to declutter for an hour. Can I text you when I start and text you when I finish? Can you just send me, can I just say, hey, I'm having a hard time. I came across my father who's passed watch collection. I'm having a hard time with this. Like set yourself up for success. Don't do it to beat yourself up.
Yeah.
So that's really the big 3 takeaways are what's your why, schedule the time with yourself, and start small.